Good morning, everyone. My name's Jeff Makauka. I'm with the Center for Health Technology and Innovation at the American Heart Association. I'm very excited today to showcase some companies that have been in a program that I've been working on with my fellows in various organizations around innovation, around cardiac and stroke. So very excited. Over the last year, we've been building a relationship with MedTech Innovator, which is an accelerator group, which you'll learn much more about from my good friend Brian. But through this program, we've brought together 5 companies and really watched them grow as they go through an intensive accelerator program to get ready and improve their offerings as they go to market and improve health outcomes. But before we get to Brian and some awesome showcasing from the companies themselves, I'd like to bring up my other friend, Heather, from Astellas RX Plus, who's been with us on this journey. Heather? Applause. Applause now. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jeff. I want to thank the American Heart Association and MedTech Innovator for having me here today. My name is Heather Walsh, and I head up the Astellas RX Plus Business Accelerator. We are the digital health hub of Astellas, and we combine the expertise of Astellas with the agility of a startup. We're committed to delivering personalized, accessible, effective care through digital health technologies in real time to patients. While we are part of a larger pharmaceutical organization, we focus on developing technologies that are agnostic to our pharmaceutical portfolio. This is including 2 new projects that are actually close to commercial launch. One of them is a digital health solution for managing heart failure patients, and we have a growing pipeline of other technologies in earlier stages. As the founding Catalyst sponsor of the Heart and Brain Health Program, RX Plus is really proud to support the next generation of companies and innovators that are developing novel health solutions to better patients' lives. So congratulations to the 5 finalists. It's been really fun watching you go through this program, and I can't wait to see what you do next and for the future of this program. So now I'll hand it off to Brian.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Jeff, for the warm intro. It's been amazing working with both of you over the past year and really building up the cohort and ecosystem focused on heart and brain health. Pleasure to meet everybody here today. It's an amazing conference. It's been exciting over the past several days. I know the Bears didn't win, so sorry about that, but it wasn't my fault, though we're from LA. We didn't cause that. So I'm Brian Benson. I'm the Senior Vice President of MedTech Innovator. And let me tell you a little bit about MedTech Innovator and why AHA is partnering with MedTech Innovator to support early stage startups to get them to the patients that need them most. So MedTech Innovator is the world's largest accelerator for medical devices. If you don't already know, now you do. We have an extensive portfolio of companies from digital to implantable solutions. We have 717 alumni. Of those, over the past 12 years, have gone on to raise about $8.7 billion in follow-on funding. Sounds like a lot of money, and it is. Over the past year, about 1 in every 3 venture dollars invested in the medtech space have gone to our alumni. So it kind of highlights the track record of our ability to identify the most promising companies, but also ensure that their continuity and continued success over the years grows. How do we do that? We wrap these companies around with a suite of resources critical to their success, one of which is the community. We've built an ecosystem of strategic partners that help us advise these companies into the needs and where they need to de-risk their technologies to get it to the patients that need it most, as well as an ecosystem of investors, key opinion leaders, and a variety of other service providers. Our mentoring process during the program is really critical for these companies to understand where they need to go in their journey, giving them real-time guidance, but of course, it's their passion that gets them there. How do we pick the companies? This is really the critical part in the program. we spend about 6 months doing diligence on all these companies. So the companies that you see here today, these 5 finalists, have gone through the ringer, and there's a reason why they're here. It's not because they're pretty. It's not because they paid to be here. It's because the ecosystem, the industry, thought that they were the best opportunities to address key unmet needs in this space. So this year, we saw about 1,300 companies apply from around the world. Of those, we invited a very small subset to participate in in-person pitch events selected by our strategic partners and guided by about 500 plus reviewers to help us with this evaluation process. Of those companies that went to pitch, we picked 65 companies for this year's cohort, 5 of which you'll see here today. And then we have the opportunity for these companies, in addition to the services I mentioned, to go on to compete for non-dilutive funding. We offer about $1 million in non-dilutive funding to these early stage companies. But why are we here today? So we partner with AHA to expand our ecosystem, to identify other opportunities and support the companies beyond just strategic guidance, but also clinical, as you've heard today, and thought leadership for these companies. So AHA has been an amazing partner with us over the year to really build this ecosystem, build the cohort focused on heart and brain health. So it's been an exciting partnership for us because we're limited by our partners. Without AHA, we wouldn't be able to support an additional group of cohort companies focused in this particular area. So it's been exciting to work with them over the year and build a unique resource for companies that don't currently have today. So to give you a sense on how these companies got here, there was about 430 companies that applied for the program. We down-selected that to 80, did deep dives to 85 companies, picked 12 to pitch. Of those 12, these 5 were the finalists, and they're here today. So it's been an amazing journey just to get into the program. So that's, again, about a 6-month process to get into this program, and then followed by a 4-month accelerator. So if you're hearing from them, you should get to know them. They are transforming the healthcare space, and you'll hear a little bit more about that after I wrap up. So here are the cohort finalists, amazing companies in the digital health space focused on heart and brain health. You'll hear their presentations, get to know them a little bit better. But again, they're not just entrepreneurs, they're innovators, they're thought leaders in the heart and brain health space. So it's a great ecosystem of companies to learn from and get to know. What's next? So I'm excited today to announce the continued relationship with the American Heart Association and MedTech Innovator and an expanded engagement with the CHTI, or the Center for Health Technology and Innovation, as well as AHA Ventures for next year's 2025 cohort. We'll be working with them to identify companies in the heart and brain health space with a focus on women's health. So it's an exciting opportunity in an area that we've seen growing need, and now we're able to really build a program around this unmet need and support companies in this particular space. So if you're interested in learning more, if you're interested in participating in this program, please scan this QR code or go to medtechinnovator.org and apply, and you'll be able to find out more information. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you're looking to get to know entrepreneurs, scan this. It's a great opportunity. We're kicking this off. We're, again, honored to announce this collaboration with AHA and continued relationship, because clearly we saw something in this year, and we're excited to see what we can do next year with a broader focus. So without further ado, I'd like to call up our first company. They'll give a brief presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A session after. We have some initial questions, so I can ask. I have my questions prepared. If anybody in the audience has questions, feel free to raise your hand, and we can come out and get you the opportunity to ask your question. But with that, I'd like to call up AccurKardia.
ECGs have been central to cardiac care for over a century. ECGs are being embedded into everything, from what we wear to what we drive. Researchers leveraging cutting-edge AI are discovering that our heart's electrical signal contains a lot more information than ever imagined. We will, for the first time, be able to continuously, remotely, and non-invasively monitor a broad biomarker. AccurKardia is leading the charge in leveraging the power of ECG as a biomarker. Our FDA-cleared flagship product, AccurECG, is device agnostic, integrates with clinical workflows, and provides faster and more accurate interpretation of clinical-grade ambulatory recordings. Additionally, there are several critical conditions that require echocardiograms, blood tests, or cardiac MRIs for detection, all of which are more complex and expensive to administer. Consider aortic stenosis. Our algorithm improves point-of-care monitoring by providing a clear indication of risk for AVS using a simple ECG. We are at the cusp of a future where smart devices and AI combined with telehealth will change healthcare forever.
Good morning. I'm Juan Jimenez, co-founder and CEO of AccurKardia. I'm excited to share how we are transforming ECG into a more powerful diagnostic and broad biomarker in order to improve patient outcomes and save lives. Cardiovascular disease continues to be the leading cause of death in America. As America's population ages, for the first time ever, life expectancy is decreasing. And there is a huge cardiology shortage. There are more than 50% of counties in America what called cardiology deserts. And we need to empower primary care physicians to be able to use technology that they already have to be able to manage this growing pressure. The solution is the old ECG, a technology of more than 100 years old. There are more than 300 million ECGs performed worldwide from a wide array of devices, from in-hospital to consumer wearables. Even smart toilets are able to capture this data. We are literally sitting on vast amount of ECG data. But this evolution of ECG goes beyond arrhythmia detection. With the advancement in AI and compute capacity, we can see the hidden signal within this data, so we are going to be able to detect, predict, screen, and manage disease with this information already available in the healthcare system. AccurKardia's solution to this problem is our device-agnostic ECG interpretation platform. This flagship product, AccurECG, is a Class II software as medical device that is able to ingest data from Holters, extended Holters, cardiac patches, and mobile cardiac telemetry devices. AccurECG reduces the interpretation time of these recordings by up to 70%, empowering cardiac monitoring companies to deliver reports to their physicians faster so physicians can start treatment more effectively. AccurECG provides bit-by-bit analysis, PAC and PVC detection, automated interpretation for up to 13 different relevant rhythms, and a fully automated ECG strip. AccurECG was validated according to the world-recognized standards, and the performance was excellent for this clinical-grade platform. But we are tackling other conditions beyond arrhythmia, like aortic stenosis. We received breakthrough device designation for this technology just a few weeks ago, and is capable to screen and detect aortic stenosis with data already stored in the system, allowing us to use data already stored without the need for new devices and disruption to the current clinical workflows. We have already validated this technology with data of more than 100,000 patients from 3 different sites in the US. We have recently published one abstract at HRX earlier this year in September. Our team is comprised of industry experts and healthcare innovators, including esteemed advisors from great institutions that complement our inside work. Last year has been great for AccurKardia. We obtained FDA clearance for AccurECG. We were able to close our seed round and our first customer. And as I said before, just a few weeks ago, we obtained FDA breakthrough device designation for our technology. So I'd like to thank MedTech Innovator for curating such an amazing program. And also I'd like to thank CHTI for giving us this platform to share our innovation with the heart and brain community. Thank you for your time and looking forward to your questions.
Hello. Oh, there we go. All right, so we'll start with the Q&A. I think we got one question over there. Go ahead, Ken.
So Juan, you know, there's a lot of companies out there that are trying to do this. So first question is, how are you different from, say, Cardiologs, number one? And number two, when you think about the workflow of a clinic, how does this fit into the standard workflow? And how does it impact the amount of human time that's needed to review the arrhythmias?
Great question, Ken. How we are different to Cardiologs. Our first product, AccurECG, goes beyond the Holter and extended Holter use case. We can use our technology for mobile cardiac telemetry, which is a trend that we have been seeing that doctors would need to rely on mobile cardiac telemetry to be able to detect rhythm disorders in more than even two weeks, which is the extended Holter. Secondly, we can also analyze short duration strips. For some of these technologies right in the market, they need long duration recordings. We can perform analysis on 10 seconds recording, like Holter, extended Holter length, as well as continuous mobile cardiac telemetry. And finally, we have two options, a full platform or just an API accessible platform just integrates with the current solutions. And how in the Holter and extended Holter our technology plays? One is the average cardiologist wait several weeks to get the report back for their Holter, extended Holter use case. With our technology, we help the cardiac monitoring company reduce the time spent of the cardiac technician so they can deliver the reports in a few days rather than waiting several weeks. And that is how we are transforming the Holter and extended Holter use case.
All right. Well, I have a question. So obviously, we have a lot of cardiologists today here, but there aren't all across the U.S. So there is some limitations to access to care. So how does this technology help reduce, mitigate, or alleviate some of that issue with access to cardiologists' expertise?
Sure. It's not even internationally, as I said earlier. Even in the U.S., close to 50% of counties don't have a practicing cardiologist, and this problem is even worse in other geographies. Our technology is able to integrate with the current ECG platforms in place, so we can empower primary care physicians to use the ECGs that already are generating as part of the practice and getting automated interpretation with a clinical grade accuracy for arrhythmia management, and now with aortic stenosis screening using ECG signal.
Awesome. Well, that is all. We can do one more. Let's go ahead.
Thank you.
Hey, that's awesome technology. How can the algorithm differentiate between aortic stenosis or any other type of LV outflow tract issue?
Yeah. Well, our current validation focus has been on aortic stenosis, but we have seen in internal validation that the technology can be used to detect LVH, for example, better than the current standard of care. But our initial use case is focused on aortic stenosis, but we expect to expand that to other flow diseases.
All right. Thank you again, Juan. All right. So that was Acrocardia. Next up, Accur AI. Come on down. So we'll jump right into their presentation. So I'll turn it over.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. We've already started, I see. Let's go back one. So heart failure probably needs no introduction to this crowd. It is a costly and complex disease, very difficult patients to manage, and some of the highest readmission rates out of all patient groups. We are in desperate need for better tools to help manage these patients. We know that cardiac and pulmonary pressure evaluation helps us stabilize these patients and helps us provide better care for these patients and has been shown to lead to reduced readmission rates. This is what current ways of getting at these pressures look like today, costly and invasive, which by definition limits the applicability of these technologies. Why are these pressures important? Well, they're one of the earliest and most sensitive signs of heart failure, and various studies have shown that if we can detect these pressures early, we can intervene and much better avoid a lot of the readmissions that occur. We are taking a slightly different approach to this, where we are looking at treating patients in the in-hospital setting. So from the day of admission to the day of discharge, we want to be there with our device to help offer meaningful insights to cardiologists, nurses, and hospitalists when it comes to managing these patients. The device, as you probably guessed by now, is a non-invasive cardiac and pulmonary pressure sensing device. You simply place it on the patient's chest alongside the sternum for a few minutes, and we are then, within a few minutes, able to approximate these cardiac pressures. What's this going to do for clinical care? Well, at the end of the day, we're hoping to improve decision-making through this workflow. That will reduce the resource use that these patients take up. They're, as many of you know, typically loss-making patients and not very profitable for hospitals. So the more of them we can keep out of the hospital by avoiding readmission rates, and the more that we can reduce the cost of actually managing these patients, the better it's going to be for everyone involved. The technology is based on what we call the SAVE sensor system. SAVE is an acronym for the technologies that this device embodies. We have seismic cardiography, acoustics, visual, and electric sensors. We have built some of the largest data sets in this space, collecting data from the gold standard, so right heart catheterization procedure, which has been done on over thousands of patients, which then allows us to approximate these pressures non-invasively. The current pathway for these patients is pretty complex. It takes a lot of time and takes a lot of resources. We hope to disrupt that in many ways, but primarily by getting rid of a lot of non-sensitive and non-specific tests that are both costly and time-consuming, getting patients to the right care much faster, and then have an ongoing dialogue with the patient through frequent measurements with our device to help drive guideline-directed medical therapy and diuretic adjustments, which we believe will improve decision-making, as I've mentioned, which by extension will lead to fewer readmissions, reduce costs of care, and overall sort of better outcomes for these patients. In terms of clinical validation, we have worked with some of the world's leading heart failure hospitals to validate this. We started off in Sweden with a pilot study that looked at 330 patients. We saw some very strong correlation and high levels of sensitivity in identifying elevated levels of pressure. And we have just recently finished our CAPTURE-HF study, which is a 1,600 patient study across 20 hospitals in 6 countries. The data from that study is looking positive so far. We expect to have our study reports by Q1 and to have some of the early results presented at the CSI Heart Failure Conference in Frankfurt later this year. We have some early data for you here, just looking at the accuracy of our device versus what physicians, and these are heart failure physicians, are able to accomplish today. These buckets are the best estimates of heart failure physicians when it comes to assessing what level of congestion these patients have, so what level of wedge pressure they have. And we are on average more accurate than your average cardiologist for doing this, which means that this device could potentially be distributed to many different workflows, and we could lead to a lot better decision making happening across many workflows where these patients exist. The team consists of myself and my esteemed founders. We're a technical co-founding team by nature, and we built this device from the bottom up, from idea to where it's at today. We've partnered with some of the world's leading heart failure specialists and are excited to continue working with them on our continued studies over the next quarters. Looking forward, as I mentioned, study report coming up. We're always raising, we're a startup, and we expect to have regulatory approval in the US and EU by 2026. If you want to learn more, please just get in touch here at philip.peters@akamai.com, and thank you very much for your time.
Another great presentation, so thank you. We're going to open it up to some Q&A. So I see we got one over there. Good.
Do you want this one?
There you go. Sorry. So how do you compare clinically to CardioMEMS, and then from a cost standpoint, how do you compare to CardioMEMS?
So clinically, we're actually demonstrating similar levels of accuracy as CardioMEMS when they were compared to a right heart cath. So we're doing really well there so far. If this is, of course, assuming that the data continues the way it's going now. From a usability standpoint, we're targeting the in-hospital use case. So CardioMEMS is focused particularly on the remote monitoring, whereas we want to go into the hospitalized heart failure patient workflow first, because we think there's a huge unmet need there. And so on a cost point, we're a multi-patient use device, which is difficult to compare. We're a lot cheaper than CardioMEMS. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh. He asked if there are established codes already.
Yeah, so we're just going to tap onto the existing DRG codes that exist for heart failure hospitalizations and make the case that we're going to reduce costs and reduce readmissions for these patients.
Great.
There was another question there, yeah.
Yep.
I had a question about, was doing some of the early work on transient fluid index using devices that did bioimpedance measurements in the axilla to the heart and back.
Yeah.
And that required, it was called a transient fluid index score, but you had to have a baseline. And I think the difficulty in that is that baseline had to be that, for example, in heart failure, you had to have a baseline where the patient was actually not having any exacerbation. So the thought process is that you could do a meds to beds program, patient gets discharged. We're trying to look at their fluid index, some even other scoring systems for PA pressures. PA pressures go up. There's also right RV strain. So where are you getting your baselines from? Can they be in exacerbation of their condition? Is this targeted outpatient, inpatient, inpatient to outpatient? Where's your targeted area for those patients that are going to use your tech?
So the patient group that we're specifically looking at are going to be mainly stage C heart failure patients, and the indication for use is going to be looking at suspected or confirmed heart failure or congestion and managing them there. In terms of baseline, the way we get around baseline is by having a really large data set to train our machine learning models. So we have kind of a baseline for each patient built into the model effectively. These are all resting state measurements, so that's the only data we have. But so you can probably guess, a HFpEF diagnosis would be very interesting to have the changes in pressures from resting to exercise, right? But that's a further down the line development for us. Thank you.
All right, I think we've got one more question, and then we'll let you get off the stage.
I'm happy to stay.
Thank you. Great presentation. So one question I would have is when you talk to clinicians, and there was a slide that kind of eliminated different steps in the clinical workflow, how do you get clinicians comfortable with something conceptually like AI, that you're eliminating steps but not introducing more risk into the process of getting to the conclusion that you're trying to achieve in the acute setting?
Seeing is believing, right? I think the reason we have a 1,600 patient data set across 20 sites in 6 countries is because we want to kind of get rid of that doubt in people's minds that this doesn't work. This is some AI mimic, right? So that is how we've done that. I think every year now people are getting more and more comfortable with sophisticated AI. So I think in 2 years' time when we launch, it's going to be even more open. And I would say, what we're offering is so obvious to most cardiologists that it's going to be clinically meaningful that we don't need to do any convincing that this is going to have benefit for the patients, right? We're taking something that's been known to work for heart failure patient management for decades, and we're making it non-invasive. And I think that's a pretty compelling argument for a lot of cardiologists out there.
All right. Thank
you.
Good job. All right. Another amazing presentation. And again, if you're interested in hearing about the companies that are transforming the healthcare space in the heart and brain area. Come on down, sit down. We see there's a lot of people already here, so thank you. And next up, I will call ICE Neurosystems. Come on down.
Who's this? Thanks very much, Brian. I'm Alan Waziri. First of all, I would like to thank MTI, AHA, CHTI. Simply unbelievable opportunity, particularly for a physician like myself who's doing their first startup and has no idea really how to work through the process. So ICE Neurosystems is basically kind of a labor of love. This is something that we as clinicians see all the time, and I saw literally every day in 20 years of neurosurgery practice, is that we do a lot of stuff for the rest of the body and the critically ill, and the brain just kind of sits up there and we never really know what's happening to it while it's suffering and so on and so forth. And the core need is a better system of monitoring the brain. There's a range of complications that we see very regularly in patients that are critically ill. Over 5 million patients per year are at risk for these complications. Not only does this lead to patient suffering, but it's an enormous source of direct and indirect costs for the healthcare system. The key thing is that a lot of these complications could be avoided if we had access to a vital sign that would give us some early warning that something bad was happening. And clearly, the best option for brain monitoring is EEG. The problem is that due to technical barriers, EEG is only used in 1% of critically ill patients at this time. It's kind of all the usual suspects. It requires specialized personnel. Scalp EEG provides really short-term, poor quality data, and we don't really have analytics that allow kind of normal humans like myself to leverage that data. Weirdly, it never ends up integrated with the other vital signs and often can't even be accessed away from the bedside. And this technology really hasn't changed in decades. So about 5-6 years ago, I left my practice and along with some colleagues launched ICE Neurosystems to really build the definitive platform that would solve all of the practical challenges that we saw with the ability to leverage EEG as the vital sign for the brain. The key component of our platform are now FDA-cleared subcutaneous electrodes that are basically placed by routine bedside staff, kind of like placing an IV in a safe 3 to 5 minute procedure. These provide not only long-term data, but there's no maintenance required, and the signal quality is significantly better than standard scalp EEG. The data from these electrodes is directly brought into some bedside hardware that is really designed for plug and play at the bedside by non-expert clinicians. We've built the best-in-class EEG processing system, which transforms the raw EEG into colors, numbers, pictures that nurses and physicians at the bedside can understand. Key element of this is we're simultaneously bringing in all of the vital signs. So for the first time, we can really understand the interaction between the brain, the heart, the lungs, so on and so forth. All of the data is then transferred to a cloud application that allows us to kind of really visualize it at anywhere in the world from any location. The data set is highly structured at the baseline, which is designed for optimized learning. And to date, we've collected over 30,000 hours of combined brain and body data. In the cardiac arrest space, which I think is germane to the group here, really it kind of points out the need that's out there. So the 2024 guidelines really suggest that patients that are admitted following a cardiac arrest and resuscitation should receive at least 3 days, if not 5 days, of continuous EEG. The reason why this is important is that EEG is really a mainstay of neuroprognostication, and patients can kind of be broken into 3 groups. There's about 15 to 20% of patients that will have kind of a benign continuous pattern even while in a comatose state, which is a really strong indicator of potential for good outcome. Then there's a group of patients in the middle that have epileptiform or seizure type activity, but there's a significantly large group of patients that demonstrate patterns that are highly malignant, that are almost uniformly consistent with poor outcome or death. And in these patients, really kind of prolonging care is not in the best interest of the patient, the family, or the healthcare system. We performed a controlled head-to-head trial between our subcutaneous electrodes and standard scalp EEG. There were no complications in this group. Average duration of recording was over 4 days. And we found that, as we expected, the subcutaneous electrodes are superior, not just in terms of noise, but also readability. And we were able to see all the classic cardiac arrest patterns in these patients. These are some of the case examples. And so in a patient that demonstrated one of these continuous or reactive patterns, you can see kind of the raw EEG on the left, which is what the neurologists are used to looking at. On the right side is kind of more a graphic display of these kind of derived EEG variables that can really be used by nurses and non-expert clinicians to understand. This is an example of a patient that had a non-convulsive seizure. You can see something that looks like seizures in the raw EEG, but clearly a very significant change in the processed EEG that somebody at the bedside can pick up on. Really interestingly, we noted that the patient's blood pressure went up, the heart rate went up, the oxygen saturation went down in spite of no external indications of seizure that was concurrent with that event. And that could be something that we're seeing quite frequently in numerous critical care populations. This is an example of a patient that really demonstrated, kind of a very highly malignant EEG pattern, isoelectric, no brain reactivity, and honestly, perpetuating care for this patient is really not in the best interest of anybody involved. We've had a very interesting early experience in ECMO. I mean, obviously, brain complications are a #1 driver of overall outcome in ECMO, and we've seen that we can use EEG or processed EEG to not only look for complications like stroke and hemorrhage, but we can also use it as a very sensitive detector of brain blood flow. In this case, you can see that the patient was intermittently in and out of suppression of EEG that was highly correlated with decreases in arterial blood pressure and heart rate. To date, we've monitored over 300 patients. Separately, we've had a great experience in the ischemic stroke space, as well as cardiac arrest, as well as application in a number of other very common critical illnesses. Thanks very much for your attention. Would love to talk to anybody about our experience and join our mission, looking for better data to save the brain. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Eardrums. So thanks, Alan, again, and highlighting ICE Neuro. I think we have a question.
Yeah, this is great. I just went through a family member dealing with this issue, and but my question relates to the data that you have, because you have a lot of information, and I'm sure potentially in that information there are at least chance to weed out observational signals related to the clinical condition. You mentioned hemorrhage, but there must be other things to look at, especially if you're going to use data science and throw everything into the washing machine, right? So have you thought about any particular patterns that might fit with clinical course or have survival prediction, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a fantastic and very important question because coming from the kind of research clinical side, right, we're always looking for diagnostics, so on and so forth, but making the transition into clinical application is a regulatory component, an adoption component, so on and so forth. So as you mentioned, there are many different applications. What we're thinking about starting on from that perspective is brain symmetry, something as simple as, are the two sides of the brain the same? Stroke diagnostic, hemorrhage detector, blood flow detector. Yeah.
All right. We got time for one more, I think.
Can I just say one more thing? So think of how you could become a data science company now.
Yeah, so, we're obviously, we structured the data in that way, and we added a lot of, kind of tagging there, but I think that's where we're...
All right, one more quick question. Ken, if you had a quick question? Ken?
Yeah, so you're tackling a really big problem here, and you showed that it's in the guidelines for post-stroke. I think most of the cardiologists here probably don't do that. They don't follow the guidelines to do that. Part of the reason is their hospitals don't have EEG techs, which is another big problem. So how does this help tackle that? And then who do you see as the primary user of this technology?
Yeah, so what you just identified is, I think, the major reason why we don't have a more broad-based use of EEG is that it's just very cumbersome and very expensive for hospitals to engage right now. Specialized personnel, a lot of capital expense to get the equipment. It's kind of treated like radiology, where we collect up some data and somebody reads it 12 or 24 hours later. So we really set up our platform to not only optimize the hospital finances in terms of bringing in the technology, but really allowing the people who are at the bedside taking care of the patients to leverage the data. So right now it's the intensivist, the physician extenders, APPs, PAs, and honestly now we're seeing a lot of interest from the nurses, particularly in the ischemic stroke space in the post-EVT time window.
All right, thank you very much. Great job. All right. So exciting presentation again. And again, an AJ clinician turned entrepreneur, turned successful entrepreneur, hopefully soon. And I'd like to call up our next company now, Smart Cardia.
Next one. One more time. There we go. Hey, welcome everybody. It is a real honor to be here. My name is Adam Kirchgessner. I am the U.S. Sales and Operational Lead for Smart Cardia. At Smart Cardia, we are the world's only 7-lead ECG with a comprehensive set of vital signs, all streamed to you live from a single-use disposable patch. So when you break down the cardiac and remote patient monitoring market in general, it represents over a $30 billion market opportunity. You can pretty much slice it up into 3 different markets. You got your diagnostic and screening market, then you got your inpatient and live hospital telemetry market, and you've got your outpatient remote patient monitoring market. Our technology allows us to seamlessly fill into any one of those markets, making us a true hospital-at-home solution. In addition to that, our technology and our sensors allow us to jump into any number of adjacent markets, whether that be sleep apnea, hypertension, or heart failure. So what is it that we actually do? I know a lot of you are probably looking at it and, oh my God, another dang patch, and this market is already so dang flooded. What makes you guys absolutely different? Well, iRhythm came along, thank God, 15 years ago, and created the first ever single-use disposable patch. Since then, there's been hundreds and hundreds of diagnostic tools that have come out there. All of them solve little bits of each other's problem, but none of them are a total comprehensive solution. So the first thing that we offer is we're the world's only 7-lead ECG patch, so allowing you to not just diagnose simple arrhythmic issues, we're validating those with multiple leads, in addition to the fact that we can start diagnosing possible ischemic problems. We're also streaming that data in true real-time fashion. So we have our FDA approval for true real-time, not near real-time, but true real-time monitoring for any modality, whether that's Holter, extended Holter, event, or MCT, all streamed live through our patient app that is sent to the cloud and allowing our AI solution software to detect arrhythmia and automatically alert clinicians of actionable data and not deluge them with more data that isn't actionable. So where are we at as a company? So we've already done numerous clinical trials validating our technology, in addition to trials that are going on right now at UC San Francisco, HCA, and Tulane, looking at a number of different kind of clinical outcomes that doctors are telling us all about that they want to know about and ways to uniquely use our technology. Selfishly, I am a sales guy, and we have our FDA approval now, so I'm ready to go off to the races. In addition to our FDA approval, we've recently acquired an independent diagnostic testing facility here in Chicago that allows us to provide our solution to up to 90% of commercial payers or commercial patients across the United States. So when I look at our team and I think of what we're doing here at Smart Cardia, you know, we've got a number of people that have experience from Barty, myself, we've got biotelemetry, iRhythm, Medtronic, but really what I think bonds us together and made me want to take this challenge on is our founder, Srinivasan Murali. After founding numerous different companies, one of the unique jobs that he had, about 15 years ago, he worked at a company called IMEC, and he created the first sensors that were used in the biotelemetry MCT patch, sensors that are still being used and are the industry standard today. He created that patch, or created that sensor, and since then he realized that the market is just flooded with incomplete solutions, and really knows that we can harness all of the sensing capabilities and provide a total solution. We're working towards that. We're really looking forward to working with all you here, and I appreciate your time.
So you heard earlier, early stage company and now a market ready company. So exciting kind of breadth of portfolio of the portfolio company. So now we'll open up for some Q&A. Is there any questions initially? Otherwise I can ask from my side.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, great.
You'll project. There you go, Jeff. Yep. Yeah.
So just let me reiterate. So the question is, how would you market to a clinician, and why would 7 leads be better than more?
Yep, great question. Yep.
Right, clinical.
Got it. So that answer is different to every type of physician you're going to talk to. If you're talking to an EP, it's a different question. Some doctors actually care about 7 leads. Some are like, please, I do not need more data. I think what uniquely makes us different is that we solve every one of those unique problems. So whether you actually want more leads and you want to confirm your arrhythmia, we can do that. If you actually care about rhythm diagnosis, we have the highest fidelity there. We can solve that problem. But really what I think clinicians are like wanting to know is not that they're going to be inundated with unactionable data and not have to wait for that data. So we are a true real-time monitor, streaming live and providing, I guess, ingestible full disclosure data that clinicians can act on in the moment. So if you got a patient there, right there in the moment, and last night I was going to the bathroom and I forgot about that, they can stream through the data really easily and make that decision right there rather than waiting for a technician or clinician to make a decision. Thanks.
Great. I have a follow-up question on that. It sounds like there's a lot of applications for the technology. How are you prioritizing the growth strategy? Because I know you're a little on the business side. How are you prioritizing that focus and identifying other ways to develop or enhance the offering of the technology?
Honestly, it's clinician driven. So we want to commercialize and we want to print money and make this a successful exit like our previous companies. But ultimately, whatever the doctors really want to drive this company, that's where we're going to go. So we need to seek our next FDA approval for SpO2, respiration, sleep apnea. But really, what the demand is amongst the clinicians that we're seeking for, that's the direction we're going to go. And I think sleep apnea is probably our next target.
All right. Any other questions? We got one over there.
Kenny.
Yeah, so one of the things that I really love about this company is the fact that you're able to commercialize in India. Most of the companies have not been able to do that and go to some of these developing countries. Can you talk a little bit about the design of the sensor and how it goes into the disposable patch?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into the weeds on this, but really the sensor itself is reusable. So the patch is the only one that the batteries are in the patch, so it's totally disposable. So in theory, a patient could just take the sensor, put it in a new patch, and just continuously wear it for as long as they want. In addition, the way that our patches and sensor is designed is it's completely hermetically sealed. So basically, we're the only totally waterproof solution out there on the market. So you could dive to the bottom of the ocean, take a shower, and not have to worry about the adhesive kind of slipping and sliding or your signal quality being, weakened, if you will. Does that answer you, Ken? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you very much.
All right. So next, not last or least, but I'd like to call up Somnix. And we'll start with their video.
Sorry.
My husband suffered from sleep apnea for a long time. One day he went on the flight. I never knew that would be the last time I saw him.
I need a show of hands here. How many of you have sleep apnea or know people with sleep apnea? Yes, almost everyone. Actually, sleep apnea is shockingly common in our society. Hi, my name is Olivier Loswell. I'm the general manager at Somnix, and today I'll talk to you about the INAP sleep therapy. The lady you just saw in the video happened to work in our building in Redwood City, California. I met her a year ago, and she told me her story. Actually, her husband died during a flight from LAX to Dubai. Here we're talking about 1 billion patients in the world who suffer from sleep apnea, but less than 2% are actually diagnosed. Even less than that are actually treated. So why is it a problem? Well, untreated sleep apnea correlates with a lot of comorbidities. So 72% of type 2 diabetes people have sleep apnea, 76% heart failure, and the list goes on and on and on. Untreated sleep apnea will exacerbate those comorbidities, therefore putting a huge burden on our health system. So let's talk about existing treatment. For decades, the treatment of choice has been the CPAP. All know it. And the problem with CPAP is that patients are not using them. They don't like them because of discomfort, noise, psychological barriers, side effects. Kaiser Permanente recent data showed that after 12 months, 40% of the CPAP owners actually is using them. So what's the point of having a treatment for a chronic disease that you're not using? And this is the huge unmet need. So this is why we designed INAP. This is a device that is been cleared for all severities of sleep apnea, that is silent, that's very comfortable, and that has an autonomy of 6 nights. It has a suction pump and a 3-foot-long tube and a very comfortable mouthpiece. You turn on the pump, and it will actually suck the air from the oral cavity, therefore bringing forward and stabilizing all the soft tissues. Now the patient can breathe freely through the nose. It's very comfortable, and we are addressing most of the issues that people have with a CPAP. So let's talk about clinical result here. Throughout 9 studies and more than 530 patients, we show very good success rate. In some cohort, up to 90%, a 72% drop in their apnea rate for moderate and severe patients, and almost no side effect compared to CPAP. So that's why the FDA has cleared up for all severities of sleep apnea, mild, moderate, and severe, and we're unique for that. You know, we don't need a mask, we don't need surgery. It's very easy for the patient to use. And we also have been cleared in 12 other markets, including CE mark in Europe, China, South Korea, Taiwan, and others. Now let's talk about real-world evidence. We have a companion app that allows us to follow the patient during their treatment. And the number shows a 25% better rate of adherence in CPAP. We also make it very easy for the patient to have access to the treatment. They buy online once we receive the RX. Next day, it's shipped to their doorstep in all 50 states. So we have an amazing diverse team of 25. You can see here some of our executive here, our founder and CEOs here in the audience. And we have a great group of clinical advisors who actually cover all the different specialty that treat sleep apnea. So thank you, and please choose INAP for your patient and help them regain their health, quality of life, and reduce cardiovascular risk. And I'd like to thank really MTI has been an amazing program for us, but also the AHA and then CHTI to have us here to present, and we have a booth right there, so if you want to know more about us, please visit, because we want to talk to more of those cardiologists.
Great job. I think we already have some questions, so we'll open it up to the Q&A.
Olivia, great talk. Question for you. Adherence in digital tech is a really big thing. For sleep apnea in particular, CMS is requiring that patients actually, not only when they're using the CPAP, but it actually shows adherence to it, and they have to have a certain percentage of adherence for Medicare to actually pay for it. Because if you're not paying for it, CMS is saying, return the device back, and you showed some statistics around it. So is your device at this point, from an adherence standpoint, able to detect how often the patients are using it on a nightly basis over a time period, so those reports can be generated and sent over to CMS for appropriate documentation?
Yes, definitely, and that was a key element of the whole ecosystem that we created. Our app is downloaded by the patient, and it's actually Bluetooth connected to the device. Every morning we collect the usage data, so it's usage time, but also seal time, so like what percentage the patient have reached the target pressure. That means for us it's a proxy that they're using the device properly. So those data can be used, as you said rightfully, for compliance data for CMS, but also those data are visible by the physician who can follow their patient online. And the patient have also the ability to titrate the device. If they see that their patient is not doing as well as they would like them to do, they can actually deepen the negative pressure to help the patient get a better seal time.
All right, and then we got one more question over here.
Awesome technology. What are some of the side effects you're seeing in your studies?
Yes, thank you. That's a very good and very relevant question, because as I mentioned, the side effect of CPAP is one of the main reasons why people are not sticking to that treatment. So the device is very comfortable. and we have almost no side effect. The only side effect that we've noticed is over-salivation during the first week of usage because of the foreign body effect. You know, because people will sleep throughout the night with that very flexible, comfortable mouthpiece, but still will create that over-salivation. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen even some of our advisors, our partners, purchasing this and starting to use it and really loving the technology. So it's already impacting people in our ecosystem. I think we have one more question, and then we'll close it up.
So I have a question regarding the design of the device. It looks like a very sleek design and sort of like, you know, what I wanted to say is like, you know, usually CPAP machines are more robust and it maintains like positive pressure through like different body habits of patients, and like, you know, if they're sleeping a certain way, is there any restrictions on how your patients sleep, and what happens if the negative pressure essentially, like, you know, due to certain movements or if the device gets dislodged, the negative pressure like goes away? What happens after that? Does that?
There's a lot of very important point in your question, but I'm going to answer quickly, and if you want more, just please meet us at our booth. So it's designed to be portable. It's designed to be battery operated for 6 nights autonomy, as I mentioned. It's super quiet compared to a CPAP because it's a negative static pressure. We're just pumping a little bit of air and then we hold it. If ever we detect a leakage when the patient moves around or they open their mouths during their sleep, the sensor detects, kicks in the pump again and reposition everything. Compared to a CPAP that is a flow device, it's a big pump that needs to constantly push liters of air per minute. So it's a very different technology. And by the way, the CPAP needs to be plugged in all the time. So there's many, many aspects that makes that device really a very smart design that addresses a lot of the problem that people have with the CPAP machine.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. All right, I'd like to call up all of the companies from the cohort real quick. Come on up, we're gonna take a photo. Everybody, if you're interested in continuing the conversation, there's gonna be some innovation discussions taking place at the table. I want a quick photo with our cohort. Again, if you're interested in applying, the application QR code is here. The program will start, we're open for applications now. The deadline is January 15th. And we'll get started with that soon, but I wanted the cohort up here. Jeff Makauka. Jeff Makauka. Jeff. Come on up, take a photo. Thank you, everybody. And again, the companies will be down here, as well as Ken Nelson, and we'll have some other innovative speakers as well. Tatiana will be at the tables both sides, so come on down. If you're interested in learning more about the companies, speaking with innovators, learning more about the pathways for innovation, come on down, meet with them, have a candid conversation, get to know them, because again, these people are transforming the healthcare ecosystem.